First question. What should a person do if his local masjid do calculations? He should not follow them. If a person's local masjid is going by calculations, he should not follow them in the calculations. He pray with them, mashallah. Salah is valid, but he should not fast with them because of calculations. No, you follow the moon sighting. Calculation is not valid. Right? And it doesn't mean that you have to cause fitna in the masjid. Advise them, give them advice, and if they refuse, then salah is valid, right? Everything is valid, but you don't follow their fasting. Meaning, if they fast a day earlier or a day later, for example, if the calculation says, say for example, Ramadan is Sunday, and the moon is sighted for Saturday, it's not permissible for you to fast on Sunday and to skip Saturday because the moon has been sighted. But if the calculation said Saturday and the moon is sighted Saturday, mashallah, then it's okay. And of course, in general, this is an advice, it's best, as they say, to pray in a masjid that is following the sunnah more without invalidating the salah in other masajid. But it's best for a person to pray in a masjid where it follows the sunnah of the Prophet. If someone claims or says that those who take the global sighting that they're doing calculation, this is a false accusation, of course. Because what is the meaning of global sighting? Means if, first of all, as we said, the witness of one person is sufficient for people to start the fasting. So if this person, we don't have to see that person, we don't have to interview that person. It's just sufficient for that. So the meaning of global sighting, which is لا عبرة باختلاف المطالع, the moon has many matali' or doesn't have matali'. The majority of the ulama that there's no validity to the many different matali' of the moon. Meaning, it's the same moon. If it's seen any place, especially if they share part of the night, that means it's mandatory upon everyone to fast because there's no clear evidence from the Prophet ﷺ that makes that separation of different localities. It's only the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas and Qurayb when he fasted in Mecca and the people in Sham fasted a different day and they came after a few days and he said, fasted. He says, we fasted because of what we saw and you fasted. He approved both, which is the evidence that it's okay for people to have differences in days of fasting based on what they've seen. So the global sighting, and again, it's not that it's one correct way in this, because the other ones are valid to do local sighting. But who would determine the local sighting? And I'm saying that practically in a place like here, for example. People there's no religious authority over the people. So it's all masajid, it's all formed committees, right? And if you try to form one committee it's maybe, mashallah, it'd be nice if it happens, but you would find some people say, no, it's only our people. And other people know, it's a sad reality. So practically, there's no such a thing as, the local sighting that everybody would agree to, because there's no religious authority that would enforce this. So practically, wallahu a'lam, it's to follow if the moon, and this is not just because it's practically, it's jumhur ulama. The majority of the ulama are of the opinion that if the moon is sighted anywhere, then everybody follows that. So since the east, the moon is sighted before us, so if someone saw it there, then people to follow that, and that's what is easier, and that's the majority of the ulama. But if someone chooses otherwise, we don't say it's bid'ah, we don't say it's haram, it's valid, it's good, no problem. And it's been the ways of throughout centuries that Muslims are not all fasting at the same time, which is valid because of different places. And if people have a locality where people are upon one thing, this is their locality, their community, and they go by the actual moon sighting, then they should not go against them. But if they're doing calculation, there's no validity for this. It's just they're making up something. So it's not calculations; it's going with the moon sighting. So is there a criteria to select who you're feeding as a result of breaking the fast because of pregnancy or lactation or any valid excuse? It's feeding poor people. just the fact that they're poor. Doesn't have to be the exactly ones that are given for zakah. If they're poor, and it has to be food. It's not money to be given to the poor. So, and how much is the food to be given? Whether it's a meal of what a person normally would eat, prepared and it's fixed and would be sufficient for them, or to give grains and something approximately like 2.5 pounds for every day of grains, rice, or something like this that can be saved for every day. But we don't have to identify every one, of course. It's sufficient that is, it seems to be this way. And like Anas radiallahu anhu, he used to, when he reached a very old age, he's not able to fast, he would, at the end of Ramadan, he would collect 30 poor people and he would feed them. So it's not interviewing each one. It's usually, especially when there are poor people that are very recognized with ease, inshallah. Question here: if a female has still fasting to make up from last Ramadan, can she compensate after this Ramadan? The answer is yes. She should still have the days, knowing her days. And if this Ramadan enters and she did not finish the makeup days, then feeding for every day, and then still make up the days afterwards, inshallah. If someone while fasting he says, according to what you said, I love to have coffee now, but he didn't drink the coffee, does he break his fast? Since it's a good question because we didn't go in details of how the niyyah is broken because it's a pillar of fasting. If someone while fasting he made a decision to break his fast, not that, oh, I would love to have a cup of coffee now. That's different. If he says it like this, just wishful thinking, that's fine. And he shouldn't, but if he says this, that's fine. But if he made the decision, he's going to break his fast. And it doesn't have to be sinful. He might be traveling and he was planning to continue fasting, but then he says, no, I'm going to break my fast. And the first coffee shop that comes along, I will stop. He's saying, making that decision to himself. But then he kept on delaying. So then he changed his mind. It's too late. He broke his fast when his intentions was that he broke his fast. So he doesn't even have to say anything. But waswas is not to be considered. If he has whispers or going back and forth, or if he made the decision, niyyah is a pillar. So if he breaks his intention, that means he broke his fast. But if he says words, just that means, oh, he would love to eat at this moment. Everybody would love to eat and drink, but it doesn't break the fast. Like here, let's take one from here. What happens if a person is drinking water or in the process of chewing and the adhan of Fajr comes in? A person, even though there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that whoever has in his hand water and the adhan is called, then he should drink it. This is if it's in one's mouth, right? And the adhan is called, he's not initiating something new, right? He doesn't have to spit it out. He just swallow it. But not to initiate more drinks, then of course that breaks the fast. If a woman in her premenopausal state for a few months, she doesn't get her menses for a period of time, and some months later she gets her menses but longer than her usual menses, what is the ruling for her? Does she has to wait for her bleeding to be completely stopped, or she has to count the regular days of her menses and start fasting afterwards? If the days are many days, longer days, but all of these days are very clearly recognizable menses blood. That means she abstained from fasting and salah because this is all blood of menses. As long as it's not 15 days. If it's less than 15 days, then it's all days of al-hayd and menses, and she makes up the day of fasting afterwards. But if she's not able to recognize the differences of blood, then she goes back to her norm where she used to be 6 or 7 days, for example, and anything extra is to be considered as istihada. She would pray for the salah and take a shower and then clean oneself, and to pray for every salah, to make wudu for every salah, and she fasts these days. If there's differences in the blood, but if the blood is the same, then she treats it as menses as long as it's less than 15 days. How did they know that this is the last part of the night at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, especially when it's very close to Fajr and things like this? It's a claim that it was even clearer than nowadays because there was not too much lights at night, so it's easily to be recognized from the skies. And also a sarikh, or the rooster, would make their own statements during the night. Like, for example, when nowadays they're confused because there's so much lights everywhere. But if you have an environment where it's completely dark during the night and you have a rooster, a sarikh, this is when the Prophet ﷺ used to wake up at night. Is he makes, what's the voice of the rooster? What is it called in English? Huh? What is it? Anyway, what is it? Crow? Oh, okay. So the voice of the rooster exactly in the middle of the night. You can check you set your clock with it. In the middle of the night exactly, he would wake up people. And then, of course, closer to the Fajr. But the exact way, I'm not really sure, but they would know. Time of Sahar, even as I don't recall exactly, but you would find situations where text where, like Abdullah ibn Umar and others, they would make salah, and then they would ask, "Is it time for Sahar yet?" They would say, "Not yet, not yet." Yes, it is. Then they would make istighfar. So that means someone is watching to see when is it starts now. Maybe we can check it more, inshallah. What is the best way to give da'wah during Ramadan when many non-Muslims are asking about Islam, especially for Muslims who feel they don't have a strong foundation in Islamic history, rules, or answers to common questions, considering that da'wah is an obligation for Muslims? Wallahi, the da'wah is da'wah to Rusul, which is the da'wah to at-Tawheed. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And you don't have to be a philosophy major. You don't have to learn all the doubts and all the answers to the doubts and all of the different intellectual things and reasons and debates. Just to convey the meaning of La ilaha illallah, this is sufficient. If you have the ability to speak to someone. And of course, to have the kindness and the leniency, and to, if there's circumstances where a person can break the unease that people would have not listening, this can be said like this, or to give someone a copy of the translated Quran, for example, or saying that this is the month of Ramadan. The da'wah is, there's no one set way of it. And even when you speak to someone, you don't have to say necessarily like a very specific statements. You can even start with saying, in the month of Ramadan, it's a month of compassion, a month of goodness. People feed one another. Something to get them to see these types of things. Inviting them to even the masajid, as long as there's no sins are involved, and for people to organize lectures for them. All of these things are good, mashallah, or people even inviting them at their homes, as long as there's no sins and mixing and things of that nature. So it's different from one individual to the other, but yes, it's a great opportunity, especially when the shayateen, the fierce ones, are chained in the month of Ramadan, so it can be an easier one, inshallah. Musta'an. Is wearing contact lenses for my vision allowed while fasting? My eyes become dry sometimes and I have to use eye drops. Could I use them as well? Yes, inshallah. And of course, it's needed. So you use them, and if anything that even you tasted in your throat, that does not break the fast, inshallah, in this case. Allah. Any questions before I continue? There's a question. Can I pray Taraweeh on my own or with my family at home if I am attempting to review my Quran and want to use Taraweeh as a means to review my Quran so that I do not forget? Or is it still better to pray in the masjid for Taraweeh? There's Taraweeh, or the night prayer. It doesn't have to be in the masjid, because it's a recommended thing anyway. It's best to be done in the masjid, as the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, they used to do that. They used to come to the masjid and pray in Jama'at. And Umar radiallahu anhu gathered them in Salat Jama'ah. And this, it's kind of one of the ways to guarantee that you made it for that night, because you pray with the Imam till he finishes. So it guarantees, makes it that you're sure that you get this night taken care of. If someone prays at home, mashallah, this is also valid. But only for the intention of reviewing the Quran, that intention, it doesn't have to be that way. And this is something that you would not find from among the early generations of Islam, that they were upon these types of things. This issue of leading Salah and Taraweeh so that you don't forget the Quran is never heard of, except in these days. Meaning, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, when they would have Ubay ibn Ka'b leading the Salah, this is because he's the one that recites the Quran. There was no competition over this. And the same thing if someone finished the Quran, memorized the Quran. Uh, Sometimes people, they have this notion that if he hafظ al Quran, that means what? He has to read Taraweeh. No, they don't go together. Hifd al Quran, this is ibadah by itself. This is an honor for someone to memorize the Quran. It doesn't mean that he needs to lead somewhere. And actually, it's the opposite of what the Sunnah is. A person should not ask to be Imam. Whether he asks or his parents ask for him, or they go find a place for him, all of that is not from the Sunnah. Actually, a person should stay away from this and should make sure that he does not get himself looking for positions like that. But it's given, then if it's given to him because he fits, then he can accept, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help him. But not the way that things are, and organizing many taraweeh for the huffaz to encourage them not to forget. This is not heard of from the early generations of Islam. And we should encourage them by making them having the sincere intentions that they memorize the Quran for the sake of Allah, not for the sake of leading people in the salah. And the same thing with one's parents. If you say that I have my son memorize the Quran, we can make some rak'at at home to encourage them, to make them more upon the deen. There's no such a thing. This is not something to be done this way. But if it happens to be for them to lead the salah, sure, but not to organize these types of things for their intentions. Or this issue of encouraging the youth and making it part of the ibadah, this is, no, we can encourage them in many different ways, but not in the subject of al ibadah. Yes, it sounds maybe nice and things like this, but it should not be the case. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, inshallah. So it's best to be in the masjid, Allah. If you right, okay, if you know that you're going to break your fast during the day, can you still make your intention before Fajr to fast? Yes, because circumstances can change. Not that you know that you're going to break your fast and you made the decision. Again, as if you have a plane flight in the middle of the day, and you already booked it and you paid and everything, right? Still have the intention that you're fasting, because things can happen. Not that you would change anything. If things happens, then you continue fasting, and this is fine. Is it better for a woman to pray Taraweeh at home? As a general rule, the best place for women for Salah is at home. Fard and Nafl and everything, the best. But if she wants to go to the masjid, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تمنعوا إماء الله مساجد الله. Do not prevent the women from the houses of Allah, as long as there's no sins involved. And sometimes a woman would need this for her iman, for to get herself away from, to have more khushu' in certain times. But definitely the best place is at home. And if she works and struggle to make her salah at home and to be consistent in this, she will enjoy far more than those who would come to the masjid, for sure. But it requires patience with that. But again, it's not a call for someone to not to come to the masjid. No, sometimes it's needed, and it makes more encouragement. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for them. If someone is traveling and he might miss the Taraweeh because of traveling, plane and things like this, first, he should do his best, the best he can, that he prays also, even if in the plane, so that he doesn't miss the day. And with the Taraweeh prayer, he can pray sitting, no problem. So, and even to, if he can make it a long salah in the flight, so that he does not miss that one night of salah. If not, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. Yeah. Tarawih doesn't have to be after Salat al-Isha. If a person comes back from traveling midnight, then he makes the salah. So that's the thing is, if a person missed the Tarawih in the masjid, then he should try his best, of course, to pray at home. And if he's able to do it Jama'ah at home, mashallah, this is better. If not, pray alone, because it's because the hadith man qama Ramadan, whoever makes the night prayer in Ramadan. The issue of the masjid is that it guarantees that he gets the day. Doesn't mean that if he prays at home, he doesn't get the day as Qiyamul Layl. He gets it also, but sometimes a person might be lazy, might not do things in the right way. So, so- yes. No, no. It says كتبت له قيام ليلة. Whoever prays behind his imam till he finishes, it will be recorded for him as قيام ليلة. So this is the issue of guarantees he gets it. That's the ease of the jama'ah in the masjid. People, when they're gathered because of a disease, someone died, they gather at home and the people would feed them so that they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon the deceased. Is that right? This is bid'ah. This is a vision in the deen. This issue of the yearly memory of the deceased, or after 40 days, or bringing people to feed them even after a person died for them to make dua. All of that is innovations in the deen. People died at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and there was no such a thing whatsoever. What's best is for people to make dua. If they want to give charity on behalf of the dead, that's fine, but not to make it as a ritual thing. Whether it's giving people money with the intention of charity on behalf of the deceased, this is valid, or to feed people as a charitable thing with the intention to be on behalf of the deceased, this is all good. But this issue of ritualizing things on a specific day, people get together, and the same thing even when people do things on the internet or messages. Today is the his father died 1 year ago. Don't forget my father from your dua. What does that mean? A year ago, it doesn't mean anything. There's no birthdays or death days or these things people do all the time, also online and things. This is actually part of the al jafa, or being not kind to the deceased. That we only wait for the year to pass for them for us to remember them. You know, if you're able to remember your mother and father with every sujood, with every dua, you should always make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them, instead of these yearly and these types of things. طيب, what is the ideal daily schedule in Ramadan? When should one sleep and how often should one sleep? When should one work? When should one do ibadah? Inshallah. Of course, this is different from one person to the other, but very briefly, in Ramadan, the most important thing is the obligations. So to make for men to pray every salah in the masjid, this is what is best if they're close to the masjid. This is more important than Taraweeh prayer. So praying Salatul Dhuhr in the masjid is more rewardable and more important than praying Taraweeh in the masjid. And it doesn't mean that way that means a person does not pray Taraweeh. But sometimes people would find them praying Taraweeh, but they are at home and they're close to the masjid and they don't come for Dhuhr and Asr. Or you find them assuming that in Dhuhr people are at work, so that's why there are less people in the masjid. But for the sake of arguments, if people are all not working and they are present close to the masjid, the fact that they would come for Taraweeh more and not for Dhuhr and Asr, there's something wrong here. So to make sure that the obligations are done perfectly on time, with the Sunnah prayer and the Taraweeh prayer to be observed, and fasting, you have time for reciting the Quran as much as a person can. And the month of Ramadan doesn't have to be the month where you take vacation. There's no such a thing. You can still work, but to organize the time. If a person is able to take off the last 10 days, this is better, in which a person would seclude himself in ibadah, and to have the ease of spending more hours during the night. More hours during the night for the Quran is something to be stressed in the month of Ramadan. So it's a month where you don't have the norm of what you do throughout the year. And it's important to change sometimes the norm occasionally, like one of which is the month of Ramadan, which shows the ubudiyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah make it easy, inshallah. Some people don't do relations during the night of Ramadan. Is this incorrect? Yes, this is incorrect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted it during the night of Ramadan, except the last 10 nights of Ramadan if a person is making i'tikaf. So, and the ayah is clear about this. What should I do if I have many fasts to make up for 5-6 years because of multiple pregnancies? I've tried to make up some of the fasts, but still have many left. I did not pay fidya for any of the prior years. I need to calculate and pay fidya for all of the years that these fasts have stayed with me. Yes, that's the first thing to do, is to make sure that you pay the fidya. And the paying, that means you feed the poor people with every day you missed. Or if it's you missed it because of the child, then it's your husband or the one that is the guardian of the child is to give that money. If that is taken care of, then to be at ease with oneself in making up the days. And if someone died before finishing these days, especially with pregnancy and breastfeeding, there's no harm, inshallah ta'ala. Because again, the matter is of a difference of opinion, but to count them, to make sure that you are on the safe side, to make sure that you fast them whenever you have the means, winter time, the days are short, things like this. But the fidya is important and should be done. Niyyah of Shawwal fast, can it be done before the fard, the make-up fast, or can we make niyyah for fard and Shawwal? If the fard, to make up the days of fard in Shawwal, would be only counted days and a person would do them and then do the 6 days of Shawwal, this is what is best. If the fard the days are so many days and a person would either has to be making up the fard or fasting the 6 days of Shawwal, there's no harm if a person fasts the 6 days of Shawwal, and the evidence of that is the actions of Aisha radiallahu anha. She would delay the fard till the month of Sha'ban. And some said it's best to do the fard because that's fard, and which is in principle, in general, yes, the fard should be taken care of first. So if a person is busy during Shawwal making up the fard, and as a result of that he missed the days of Shawwal, it's better for him that way. But is it permissible to delay? Yes, it's permissible to make the days of Shawwal. I hope it's clear. Can you repeat the different levels of sickness? Sickness. There is we said there is the sickness of, oh yes, whether it's the person is sick if he fasts, it delays the cure, or the other case if it harms the person if he fasts because he's sick. So these are two valid reasons for a person to break his fast. So he might be feeling okay, he can fast. But according to the trustworthy doctor, they say that if you fast, it would delay your cure. Then it's best not to fast. It's not about just feeling that a person is feeling good. What if you forget the niyyah, but you know you're supposed to fast? Because it's Ramadan, is your fast still counted? That's niyyah. If you know that you are in Ramadan, that's your intention. You don't have to remember a niyyah. The niyyah is that you're awake during the night of Ramadan. And if someone asks you, "Oh, what is tomorrow?" You say Ramadan. So it means you're having the intention to fast. Unless you're planning to travel this and that, or you're already traveling and you have no plans to fast, this is where you need to make the decision whether you're going to fast or not. But there's no such a thing as, making a decision or saying something, because the niyyah is in the heart. If a woman missed her fasts of previous Ramadan because of pregnancies and nursing, does she have to make up for those missed days of fasting, or she can give fidya? So we answered that one. And again, keep them on the side, inshallah, the days, and do the best you can to make up these days, inshallah. And the fidya is a must. Just to clarify, one witness is sufficient for the beginning of the month. For the end of the month, to not fast, two witnesses is needed. Doesn't matter if it's a man or woman. Yes, it has to be one in the beginning, two men, two at the end. Doesn't have to be men. Can be men or women. If the mother doesn't work, has some money that was given to her last year, and she kept them till this year, and her savings is about 200. Is she responsible to pay zakah? 200 is below the nisab, that's for sure, even with according to the silver. There's no zakah on her if whatever a year passed on, it went down to 200. That means it doesn't count as nisab in this case. So there's no zakah upon her. Does a woman get the reward of qiyam in the masjid? Inshallah, yes, as long as try our best, no sins and no mixing and things of that nature. Yes, inshallah. And if she prays at home, also this is good. To get the reward of qiyam, does one need to go every day? To get the reward of qiyam, a person has to make qiyam every day. To make sure that it's given as a way to be easy for the person, is to pray with the imam till he finishes. So even in case someone came and he prayed for 4 rak'ah, and he had to go, right? And he prays the rest at home. Does that mean that he missed the night prayer? Of course not. But it's not a good sign. That's all, as far as the reward is concerned. But it's valid for a person to do that and to do it at home also. If I'm traveling and have the ability to fast in Ramadan, is it better to take the rukhsa of breaking my fast, or is it better to fast because it's the month of Ramadan and the honor given to it? What is best, or according to the Sunnah, is what makes it easy for the traveler. If it's easier to fast, fast. If it's easier not to fast, don't fast. So whatever is easier for the person. And in some situations where sometimes you might be given a lesson to someone, like as someone mentioned, Sheikh Ibn Baz rahimahullah, being in a plane and before Maghrib, and it was very short time before Maghrib, like not too long after Asr, and he asked for water and he drank water. He broke his fast because he's traveling. He said, "ليس من البر الصيام في السفر." It's not from the righteousness to fast and traveling. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love for the person to take the rukhsa. Someone rarely travels, for example, right? And he's been fasting every day. To take the rukhsa is a good thing once in a while, and there's no tricks or anything like this. So it depends on the circumstance. But what's easier for the person is to be done. If someone travel frequently, like half of the month, as far as if he's a traveler, he has the excuse, but then he has to make up the days. So sometimes it's easier to fast. So it's easier than making up the days is to fast. But he can break the fast sometimes and not to, but he has to make sure that he makes up the days right away after. Preferable if it's easier for him. But traveling is an excuse. No. Right. Does it count as a one night prayer if it has to be 11 in Ramadan or other than Ramadan to be counted as one night prayer? The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ with Ramadan, because of the hadith man qama Ramadan. So whoever prays the night prayer in Ramadan. So to make sure that that is done is to pray till the Imam finishes, which is 11 rak'ah at least. Other than Ramadan, if a person prays 2 rak'ah, 4 rak'ah, 6 rak'ah, whatever, with the witr, he's making night prayer. But the perfect numbers is 11. This is the way the Prophet ﷺ in Ramadan, other than Ramadan. Two more questions left here. During the last 10 nights of Ramadan, do I still get the full reward of Qiyam the whole night if I only pray the full Taraweeh with the Imam until he finishes without doing Tahajjud, or do I have to complete my Tahajjud as well? There's difference between getting the reward of a full night Qiyam and getting more and more rewards for more ibadah, and especially with Laylatul Qadr, seeking Laylatul Qadr. This is another level in which it's only 10 days a person should do the best they can, because it's equal to 80 years of worship. So not to waste it whatsoever. But even from that perspective, praying Isha in Jama'ah and praying Fajr in Jama'ah. If you pray Isha in Jama'ah as if you prayed half of the night, as the Prophet ﷺ said. And if you prayed Fajr in Jama'ah as if you prayed the whole night in rewards. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful, and that's why something like this is also for people to be reminded. But as far as the tahajjud, I'm not talking about the tahajjud of the salah only. The effort that a person would do, these are all levels. This is a competition. And if a person is able that no one would beat him in the acts of worship, he should. So that's why a person should do the best they can to the best of their ability, because it's endless rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If someone feeding poor people because of qada, do they have to be Muslim, fasting person, or any poor person? Has to be a Muslim, and of course not someone that is to make them break the fast in the day of Ramadan, for example, to help them commit sins. So if they are being fed in Ramadan, then it's to be breaking their fast or something like this. But it has to be Muslims, not anyone. If I fast like Monday, Thursday with the niyyah of nafl, I remember I've had fasts to make up for a few years ago from Ramadan, can I assume that those nafl covered it, or I must do more fast with the niyyah of replacing those missed days? If it's in the past, no, you have to have the intention that this is for the fard that you missed. You can continue to fast Mondays and Thursdays, but with the intention during the night that this is for making up the days of Ramadan. The fard has to have a special intention for it. There's no more questions here. No more questions? بارك الله فيكم, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept and make it easy for us and to make us all witness the month of Ramadan, inshallah. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.